Thank you so much. I hadn't even done anything yet. And I'm not the reason we're here, but welcome to the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum's Ford Theater. I am Peter Cooper. I'm a museum editor here at the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum. That means if you were walking around here and see something in need of a comma or see a subject and verb that don't agree, I'm probably the guy to talk to. But before that, I'm compelled to tell you that what happens here in the Ford Theater for the next hour and change is more interesting than anything somebody's going to text you in the next hour and change. If it's not, we've screwed up. As Cowboy Jack Clement so often reminded us, we are in the fun business. If we're not having fun, we are not doing our jobs. We are here to have fun, and we will, so long as your cell phone does not bleep, so long as your bloopers don't bloop. That stuff ruins fun. Let's have fun. Please silence anything on your person or adjacent to your person or near your person. Silence your person. An emergency exit is located right there, so designated by the red exit deal. You won't likely need it, okay? If you hear a big boom and feel something earthquake-ish, do not fret. They are destroying Earth across the street on purpose so they can build something tall. We need more tall things. So what this is a conversation with our neighbor, Kim Carnes. She may even sing for us later, too. We like that when she sings for us. This event is presented in support of our exhibit, Kenny Rogers Through the Years, which is presented with the support of our generous friends at Sun Trust. If you have not seen the Through the Years exhibit, you need to do so, and time is of the essence. The thing is closing on June 15th as we make room in our East Gallery for a magnificent exhibit on Sam Phillips, the man who invented rock and roll. So what is Kim Carnes' Kenny Rogers connection? There are many. She spends several hours a day surfing the website menwholooklikeKennyRogers.com. That's one. Lots of us do that. Kenny in the first edition recorded a Kim Carnes song back in 1971, which was like 14 or 15 years ago. Kim and her husband, Dave Ellingson, wrote Kenny Rogers' concept album Gideon in 1980, and we're going to be talking about that. They wrote the entirety of that thing. On that album, Kim co-wrote and sang a duet with Kenny called Don't Fall in Love with a Dreamer, a top 5 country and pop hit. In 1984, Kim, Kenny, and James Ingram sang the #1 adult contemporary single, What About Me? In 1985, Kim and Kenny were featured together on the all-star collaboration, We Are the World. And yes, we have video documentation of this. This afternoon, we're here to examine, explain, underscore, and illuminate a remarkable life in music. Many of you have heard her Grammy-winning Betty Davis Eyes, which was the biggest hit of 1981 and one of the biggest hits of the 80s. Betty Davis Eyes informs any discussion of Kim Carnes' career, but it does not define any discussion of Kim Carnes. She is first and foremost a singer-songwriter. She's the only person alive or dead to have written songs recorded by Big Mama Thornton, Barbra Streisand, and Tim McGraw. She has written hits for Reba McEntire and Vince Gill, and for the duo of Ronnie Milsap and Kenny Rogers. She has written songs recorded by Matresa Berg, Susie Boggess, Pam Tillis, Conway Twitty, Tanya Tucker, and many more. She is also a gracious and giving person, and she is creative and concerned, and she is patient and smiling, and she's one of the reasons I love living here in Nashville, Tennessee. She will be in the museum store following the show, happy to chat and smile and sign copies of her CDs. So that's up that way and over that way, and she is here with us right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Kim Carnes.
So we've gotten the trip out of the way.
Yeah.
Hey, Peter.
Hey, Kim. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for putting this together and inviting me. And let me say before you talk, I'm so honored. Thank you all for coming, but thank you for this being your idea because I adore you. You are so talented and so wonderful, and we've been pals for so long. And this is such an honor. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here.
And that's all we're going to do for an hour is just tell each other how great
a lot of
we are.
thankfulness is good. No, we're not going to just thank each other for the next hour. We're going to delve deep, and we're going to get into the good stuff.
Okay.
And we're going to start at the start. You grew up, was it Pasadena, right outside L.A., which was not hippy-dippy California land, really.
No, it wasn't at all. I was a fish out of water. And I knew it from early on, except when I was 4 years old, my next door neighbor was David Lindley, who, for those of you who don't know, Jeff and Matresa, you know who he is, but he became later one of the most incredible guitar players.
Yeah. And you actually, in Nashville music, there's a long tradition of people getting married young. Loretta Lynn famously got married young. You actually got married younger than any of those folks.
I think we win 4. We were 4 years old. I had that car was, that was our honeymoon car. And I wore jeans, and my veil was a dish towel. So, and we took off around the block for a big honeymoon.
Wow. And you should have formed a band. I mean, that's David Lindley you're talking about.
I know. Well, who knew, But I think it's so interesting that way back at such an early age, we're drawn to the people that that end up being in our tribe, that have the same interests. And out of the blue, after 1,000 years, he called me like 2 weeks ago. I forgot to tell you this. And the timing, because of this, was perfect. And he told me a story of when we were 4 that he thought had been a big misunderstanding between the two of us, and he just wanted to clear it up. I don't know why. So, after we were married, I didn't see David Lindley again until I was taking a tour of A&M Studios. And I walked into a studio, and David was playing guitar on a Leonard Cohen album. So it doesn't get any better than that. And David went to introduce us, and we both went, we've been married a long time.
Wow.
Anyway, so it just, I think, again, it shows from a really early age how we're drawn to the people that we have similar likes,
By that,
similar interests.
You mean creative people? That was
Yes, creative people.
You told me you wanted to get out of there, and
he was the only person until I graduated from high school. And when I was in high school, even before I could drive, I knew I wanted to get over the freeway to Hollywood, where the studios were, and I had a duo. I sang with my best friend, Jane. I played the piano, wrote the songs, and she played bongos. And it was quite a combo. And we would get somebody who was 16 and had their license to take us over to Hollywood. And for real, we would knock on doors of record companies and say, we're here. We want to make a record, And eventually, we found...
send you over to the bongo department?
Yes. We found a place, and he said, well, if you bring back, I think the sum was $200. If you come back and bring $200, we can make a record. Well, of course, we didn't know. You're not supposed to pay them. And we were thrilled, so we went back to our parents and promised to wash cars for the next 100 years, whatever. I went back and cut 3 songs. When we brought the record, the color of the record was green, plastic. We brought it home. The first time we played it, it sounded great. The second time, a little less. The third time, we knew this was not going to last. And when we left the studio, the man who'd recorded us said, well, I'm going to Australia for 6 months, but when I get back, you guys will be the first thing I work on. So we got kind of impatient. And after 3 or 4 months, went back to see maybe if he'd come home early. the place had closed down and moved on. So lesson number one, you know.
Now, you had started writing songs way early, right? Nearly about the time you got married.
Yeah, yes, that sounds funny. Yes, exactly, I had. I would sing them, I'd pound on the piano and sing them into my parents' tape recorder. And I always knew, I always have felt so fortunate that from such an early age, there was no doubt in my mind what I wanted to do. I knew I was going to write songs and I was going to sing them. No doubt.
Did that seem like a usual, wonderful thing in your house and in your neighborhood?
In my neighborhood?
Yeah.
Oh, no, not at all. And my parents, definitely not. I don't think they ever got used to, well, I know they never got used to me wanting to do what I've ended up doing. And so that was a hard thing forever. And definitely nobody, different friends that I'd gone to school with would say, when are you going to stop this pipe dream of, being a singer and a songwriter? It's just not you. I'm like, yeah, it is. Yeah. So, but that's okay, because in my mind, I knew exactly what I was going to do and what I loved. I could not do it. That's what you do.
Yeah. You were aided fairly early on. You met another creative soul, this guy Dave Ellingson, who you wound up writing a lot of songs with.
Yes.
How did that occur?
We met on the road. I pulled up on the back of someone else's motorcycle and walked in the hotel, and we started talking. And I think in Chicago, we went out to Rush Street and listened to some jazz for not a date, just to go out as pals. And we ended up getting married, writing songs together. He runs our publishing companies, and it all worked out pretty good, really good.
You've had 2 marriages, both to Daves.
Yes, and you know what? Dave Ellingson is a banjo player. So 2 banjo players named David.
Yeah. There's a lot of places where that sort of thing is frowned on.
Well, I guess, yes.
You signed a publishing deal out in LA. Before you were somebody who was on album covers and all that, you were writing songs for others. And I believe with Jimmy Bowen as a ringleader.
We signed, Dave and I both signed with Bowen's publishing company. And at the time, it was wonderfully small. Dave, myself, pre-Eagles, Glenn Fry, J.D. Souther, Don Henley, Ken Vassy, and I think that was about it. So, and it was in the heart of Hollywood, and it was in the 70s, in the most wonderful time to be a songwriter in LA, because it all happened in just a couple block area, and we'd all sing on each other's demos, and then end every day going to this little wonderful Italian restaurant, hole in the wall, Chianti bottles with dust on them, called Martoni's. And they were such great days because we would all talk about how excited we were about our new songs, and we all wanted success for each other. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful time. It was fun, really fun.
And did you think that, was the reason you were doing that, writing songs, because you wanted to make albums? Or
Yes, both. I knew I was going to make albums, and I ended up actually making my first album with Bowen for his label, Amos Records. But I also always wanted to write songs for other people to cut, so both.
And the first person that recorded one of your songs was, and I did not know this until recently, was Big Mama Thornton.
Yeah, It's so cool.
It's, wow, a song called Sing Out Strong for Jesus.
That's
for
it.
the movie Vanishing
Vanishing Point, yes.
Right. And can we hear a little snippet of that?
Sing out strong for Jesus. Sing out for his love. Sing out strong for Jesus. Sing out for his love. Put your trust in his love and you grow strong. Sing out for Jesus. Let's just stay fear and love and watch him grow. Sing out for Jesus. Watch the mighty river rise to meet you. Take away the love and life really beats you. Come sing this song. Sing out for Jesus. Praise Jesus. Sing out for Jesus. Sing out strong for Jesus.
Wow.
How about that?
Yeah.
Now,
You know, the my best memory of that was being in the studio with Bowen, and Big Mama came in with her two boys, and
she was a presence, right? I mean, this
Oh.
is the same person who knocked Lightning Hopkins off of a stage with her purse one time. So
she was such a presence. I mean, when she walked in, you knew that she was somebody special, and we played the track. And it just wasn't happening. It wasn't working. And I'm thinking, this is my first cut. Wait a minute. Is this how it works? And so one of her pals that was with her came up and kind of whispered to Bowen, and he said, they're going to go out for a minute. Hopefully they'll come back. So they all left, and we really aren't knowing for sure, are they coming back or not? They walk back in with a big brown paper bag. Big Mama goes, puts the bottle down, and we play the track, and it's perfect. That's the take. And she back phrases so far that I'm sitting kind of going like this, thinking she's never going to make it to the end of the line, and she does it perfectly. She's so soulful and so amazing. Yeah, that's... How lucky am I to have that as a first cut? Yeah, it was wonderful.
to have the cut and the story, that's great.
That's true. Yes, yes.
You also, around this time in the early 70s, you and Kenny Rogers' paths are intersecting, and you had a cut for Kenny Rogers in the first edition.
First edition, yeah. It was a song I wrote called Where Does Rosie Go? And they cut it. That was, I think, my second cut, yeah.
Let's hear a bit of that.
Where'd you get this stuff?
I steal it off the internet like everybody else.
Where does Rosie go? I don't know. I don't know. Every night when the sun turns out the light, where does Rosie go? Every night when the sun turns out the light, she's all dressed up in fancy clothes, looking fine, but she was mine. Oh, I know where Rosie goes. Does she go to meet a man? Does she think that I would?
Wow, I haven't heard that in a long time. You're digging them up?
Well, you know what I should say, and should give a lot of credit. Somebody who puts a lot of what happens here together is Abby Tapia, and she's been stealing stuff off the internet, for us.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you so much.
What was and actually she pays for it. She's got a budget and everything. What was Kenny Rogers like back then? Was he? I mean, I see him as a very driven, business-minded kind of person. Was he that way 40 years ago?
Yikes, 40 years ago. I don't know if I would use those words exactly, but he always knew he had a path, and it was very clear to him what he wanted to do, where he wanted to go. And, anytime I ever played a song for him, he would know immediately whether it was right or it wasn't right. I never had to. Any of you in the audience who are songwriters, and you know, we write songs and they can be on hold forever and ever. Not with Kenny. He knew immediately whether he liked it or not, so you didn't have to wait to see.
At Martoni's, you guys at the end of these long days and
Long
early
nights.
evenings would gather at this Italian restaurant and talk about what you wanted to do with your life. And Jimmy Bowen told you at one point that it may take 3 or 4 albums before anything really happens.
When I put out my first album that he had produced, and I just thought automatically it would work because that was my plan, and it didn't. And we did. We sat at Martoni's, and he said, "You know, Kim, it could take 2, 3. It could take more albums than you're thinking before it really happens." And I was horrified. What do you mean? And I came to learn that what I was really loving was the journey. I mean, in those years, all the writing that I did, all the years of singing backgrounds for other artists with Maxine and Julia the Waters, those are just some of my favorite memories. I love them so much. And I came to recognize, treasure the journey, and you'll get there, just not as fast as you thought. But this right now is really cool because you're doing what you love to do. Right. And that's what it's all about, for sure.
Man. And it was on your second album that you got into the top 40 for the first time, I believe.
With what? What was that?
You're a Part of Me?
Oh, yeah.
And did that feel like, okay, this is, I got this? Or?
Well, I did start hearing it in elevators and markets, so that's like, people always said, you'll know you've made it when you hear it on Muzak.
That
actually,
and the billboard, right?
The what?
The billboard on the Sunset Strip.
Oh, the billboard. Oh my gosh. That was, yes. Back in the day, all of us who were this little community recording, there were kind of 2 huge goals that now seem really ridiculous. But one was having a billboard on Sunset Boulevard that was an advertisement for your album. Everybody wanted that. It really meant something. So my first EMI album, St. Vincent's Court, I got a billboard, and they put it up. Dave and I drove down to look at it. Oh my gosh, I looked like a monster. It was horrible. So
nobody probably noticed that. It
oh
was
yeah, they
all
did.
in your head.
I got a call from Bonnie Raitt saying, "Listen, I'm really happy for you that you got a billboard, but you need to do something about it because it looks really horrible." I'm like, "I know, I saw it. It looks awful." So they took it down, and we went. It was so bizarre. We went to the huge warehouse where they paint the billboards. It's hard to get perspective on what it looks like when it's this giant, big drawing on the floor, and you're looking at it. But they worked on it. It was never great, but they improved it. They improved it.
Good. I noticed we don't have a picture of that to show.
Oh my gosh! Thank goodness.
Wonderful.
Yeah. It was bad.
One of your favorite experiences was going down and recording in Muscle Shoals, not too far from here, although sonically at the time it seemed quite a distance. That was the Sailin' album. What was that about? Why? I mean, you're in La La Land. I can't imagine you're walking down the street one day going, well, this is getting a little boring. I think I'll go to the middle of nowhere in Alabama.
Yes, but it was all about Jerry Wexler. I idolized him, and as a producer, what he'd produced, he just was as good as it gets. He was the ultimate, and I wanted so much to work with him. So my second A&M album, Kip Cohen, the head of A&R for A&M, said, "Well, who do you want to work with on this album?" I said, "It's probably impossible, but Jerry Wexler." And like 2 days later, he called me and said, "Done. Scott, he'd love to do it. When do you want to go to Muscle Shoals?" And the whole experience turned out to be cooler than I ever even imagined. He's one of the great people in life that I've ever met. Musically, his spirit, his soul, it was just an incredible experience. And the Muscle Shoals rhythm section, you know, it was wonderful.
All the classic players were
Classic
on that
players.
album.
Yeah, I mean that was truly a dream come true, and I loved working on that album because it was perfection. And Wexler was he's the first person I'd worked with that really had the philosophy of my job as a producer is to find out what you're all about and get that onto, in those days, tape, you know. And so he would have me play songs that I'd written on the piano, as many as I could, just to get a sense of everything that I did. And then he'd say, okay, let's talk about doing this song, and let's talk about this one. And as I talked about earlier, singing backgrounds with Maxine and Julia, we were like sisters. We still are such close friends. And he flew Maxine and Julia in, and the three of us did background. So it was amazing.
Yeah. You liked the background process and that whole...
I love it. I love to sing back. You know, I mean, you've been so wonderful to ask me to come sing backgrounds on some of your songs.
It is very giving of me to ask you to sing on...
No.
You are right.
I love it, and I do. I love it.
It's like the other day I was going to shoot some hoops, and I called Michael Jordan just to throw him a bone. I was like, you want to play a little ball, bud? But let's hear a snippet from Sailing, and then keep on talking about this.
Okay. Yeah, this was Wexler.
Is that Max?
That's Maxine and Julia.
All we need is a breeze, some help from the wind. Sailing out of my dreams and into the night. We may never come back again when we go sailing. I've been all over the ocean. I've traveled through a million years. Every face I see brings it home to me that all I ever loved is he. Now won't you take me sailing, riding on the crest of a dream. All we need is a breeze, some help from the wind. You got to take me.
There you go.
Thank you.
You also you had some famous harmony vocals, right? You were on a Rita Coolidge cut.
Oh,
that,
yeah.
That wound up doing quite well and harmonizing with Bonnie Bramlett and Rita.
Yes.
And
Bonnie was, I mean, when Bonnie and Delaney first started singing, when they released their first album, and I heard her sing, I just went, oh my gosh, a girl can sing like that. I want to be her. I want to sing like that. It just blew my mind. It was so amazing. So to get to know both Rita and Bonnie, and Rita and I were both on A&M Records at the same time, and to get to sing, and of course the high point being singing on Higher and Higher. That was a big hit for Rita. I was singing with my idols, so it was pretty cool.
right there.
I was right there too.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
I could see it.
We got you in surround scene
That's right.
here.
No, as artists, we all have those moments like today with you where you go, is this really happening? What? And that day singing on Higher and Higher with them was definitely one of those pinch me moments. How lucky am I moments?
I think it's really it's interesting to me that while you were driven as a recording artist and you wanted to make albums for yourself, you were also in the studio with others, and you were writing songs that were being recorded by
Yes.
others. Then this was not a tunnel vision kind of career. You had Love Comes from Unexpected Places that Barbra Streisand recorded and won the big songwriter award in Tokyo. And do you feel like people were looking to you at that time as a songwriter, as somebody of import and consequence?
I guess yes, because I was getting some wonderful cuts as a songwriter. And at that time, I had a publisher who was incredible, and which helps getting the songs out there, big time.
I wonder if we have the other photo of you with Barbara from later on when you sang a duet that you wrote, right?
Wrote and co-produced with
Right.
Bill Como, the
Right.
keyboard player.
And that one wound, there it is. And it may be tough to see, but there's something that's been photoshopped a little bit here, Photoshop.
There's something off,
Yes, okay. Kim has these beguiling blue eyes, and in this picture there's the blue Barbra Streisand, and Barbara has these beguiling blue eyes, and Kim, your eyes aren't blue at all there.
They're pretty brown.
They're pretty
Yes.
brown. Don't, Barbara, make your blue eyes brown. What the hell happened there?
What the hell? Well, my manager called after he saw, that was the single cover, and he called and said, I've just seen it, and I'm going to call up CBS, our department, and I'm going to demand that they change your eyes right away, and we'll fix it. Don't worry about it. I had no idea what he was talking about. And I'm staring at that picture going, huh? That's okay. What? He said, don't you see it? Look at the color of your eyes. And I went, oh, they're brown. Okay. And he said, I'm going to change it. And I looked at it and went, no. You know, not only do I like the way it looks, but it's such a good story forever, you know? So if I changed them, we wouldn't be showing this picture.
That's right.
So
I'm
it
sure
was
it's
my
one of Barbara's
choice
favorites, too.
to let Barbara have her way because I thought it was kind of cool, you know?
You go. You started touring, I guess, late 70s. You were out a good bit with James Taylor
Yes.
and his all-star band.
Yes, we played all the wonderful outdoor venues in the summertime. And another magical experience. I mean, I would do my show, and then every single night, and I had one son then, Colin. He was on tour with us. He and I would sit behind the sound board and watch James' show every single night because it was so amazing. And what inspiration and what fun. I mean, we doesn't get more fun than that. We had a blast. It was great.
James appears to be enjoying himself there. I've never seen him give that signal, whatever.
I said we had fun, you know.
I like it. And
And
Leland
Lee Sklar,
Yep,
yeah.
with
The
the
amazing
A-OK.
bass player.
And while you're doing all this, you also get the ask to write a concept album for Kenny Rogers.
Yes.
You and Dave Ellingson got together, and what was your process in writing the Gideon album?
Well, at a party one night after the Grammys, Kenny came up to Dave and myself and said, how would you guys feel about writing a concept album for me? The only thing I know, I want to be a modern-day cowboy. So we went home and thought, well, we sure need to try this. And we realized we needed to first create a character, give him a name. Gideon Tanner was his name. And write a whole story of Gideon's life. I mean, he became real to us. And he had a girlfriend. Gideon was not a bit of a rogue. He was a rascal. And he was sent to jail. He had quite a colorful life. And we really had to get the whole story written out and in stone before we could then backtrack. And
So you're talking about before you rhymed this thing, you wrote...
we wrote his story, yes.
Wow.
We had to, because how would we come up with the songs that were about his life if he didn't have a life, you know? So once we got the story written and he definitely was real, we then started writing the songs. And the process of writing the songs came much faster than the story. The Gideon album starts with his funeral, a song called Going Home to the Rock. And it goes through him losing a best friend. There's a couple songs that he's saying to the person he loves and who loves him desperately, first of all, don't fall in love with me because I'm a dreamer and I'll leave you. And another song, the lyric is, you need a man whose heart is only one place in the night. And that ain't me. So it was so much fun. It was such a great challenge. And I think Dave and I are so proud of that album and the whole process.
And part of the process was also, you told me it was demoing the
Yeah.
album, but it doesn't sound like demos. It sounds
We really put a lot of love and thought into it. And Bill Como, who was my longtime keyboard player, was so instrumental in helping us make a demo album. And a good friend of ours, Ken Vassy, wonderful writer. He was the most incredible singer.
had been in the first edition.
Yes, that's right. And Ken sang all the vocals. Maxine and Julia and I did the backgrounds. And this album truly came to life. So when it was finished, we went to Kenny's house and played it for him. And he stopped, I think Dreamer's third cut, maybe somewhere up there. When we got to that, he said, well, if I do this, will you sing this as a duet with me? So he ended up doing the album and recording it. We came back here to Nashville. Larry Butler was his producer. And there you go.
You kept those demos, you and Dave had them on cassette tape.
Oh, yes. One little poor cassette.
Yeah, which you were playing in your kitchen on a little tiny cassette player. We have a Grammy-winning fellow here, Alan Stoker, who took that cassette tape and digitized it.
I'm so happy.
So it can live in our Bob Pinson collection, and so that you can have a CD version of it now. But let's hear what the actual demo sounded like.
If I close my eyes, it doesn't hurt quite so bad. 'Cause tonight I just lost the best friend I ever had. You were a maverick, running all the way from New Orleans. We tell stories round the campfire late at night, when it was down to just you and me.
Listen to that voice. Ah,
That's cool. Not many people heard that before.
I know. I know.
That's something you guys had a vision for that for sure.
We did.
It's
When Peter was over at the house and I found the cassette and played him that cut, and he said, "Don't play this cassette one more time even because it's so fragile." So I'm so glad it's on CD now. Thank you.
yeah. Well, that's Alan Stoker's work. So one of the songs you mentioned, "Don't Fall in Love with a Dreamer," that was a big hit for you and for Kenny. This is still in the. I found out that Kim told me, I had this whole life before Beady Eyes and this whole life after Beady Eyes, and people just want to talk. And it took me a second to figure out. She was talking about the song Betty Davis Eyes. That was a huge hit. We haven't even talked about that at all yet. So this is another wonderful hit occurrence before that all took off. But do you remember writing "Don't Fall in Love with a Dreamer" and what the intent was?
Yeah, I mean, I remember writing it on the piano, and it basically was, again, two things. We were writing everything from this character we'd created from Gideon's point of view, and this is him singing to the only girl he ever loved. You really don't want to fall in love with me because I'll break your heart. So, and also, when we wrote every single song, knowing Kenny's voice and his phrasing and how he sang so well, we could hear his voice in our head. I mean, that really drove every song.
Well, let's sing it. In the part that I'm singing, they can just imagine Kenny's voice.
No,
coming out.
I like your voice.
And since you did write it on the piano, I have. I hope I can follow the changes here. But let's do. Folks, would you like to hear "Don't Fall in Love with a Dreamer"?
Slow it down just a teeny bit. Just look at you, sitting there. You never look better than tonight. It'd be so easy to tell you I'd stay, like I've done so many times. I was so sure that this would be the night you close the door and want to stay with me. It'd be so easy to tell you I'd wait, like I've done so many times. Don't fall in love with a dreamer, 'cause he'll always take you in. Just when you think you've really changed him, he'll leave you again. Don't fall in love with a dreamer, 'cause he'll break you every time. Put out the lights, baby, just hold on before we say goodbye. Now it's morning and the phone rings. You say you've gotta get your things together. You just gotta leave before you change your mind. And if you knew what I was thinking, I'd turn around. If you just ask me one more time. Don't fall in love with a dreamer, 'cause he'll always take you in. Just when you think you've really changed him, he'll leave you again. Don't fall in love with a dreamer, 'cause he'll break you every time. Put out the light and just hold on before we say goodbye. Before we say goodbye. Thank you. Thank you.
You, following all this success, your first solo top 10 comes along in 1980, which was a cover of Smokey Robinson's More Love. It's also interesting to me that you were writing songs for other people and yet open to other people's material when you were singing, which would prove important. And Smokey dug that one, right?
He did. I mean, a great high point for me, a couple years later, Smokey got his own television show. So we got to sing More Love together on the show. And another, like, pinch myself moment. It was spectacular. And he was so great. He just was gracious and wonderful. And I had wanted to do that song for a long, long time.
Yeah. And he and his producer liked it so much that the producer actually insisted he sing it.
Yeah.
And so he had his own version.
He did, but Smokey wrote, the song was Being With You, and he actually wrote it for me. And he went to my ex, at that time, producer, and told him, I wrote this for Kim because I love More Love so much. And that producer said, well, you know, he neglected to tell Smokey that I wasn't working with him anymore. I think really you should do that song. This really suits you better, and I need to produce it on you. So Smokey had no idea what had gone down, and you know, we've laughed many times about that since, and said, what a cool duet that would have been, you know, but it happened like it happened, and he had no idea.
Yeah.
But the great thing was it was a big hit for Smokey, and he's the best.
Yes. Now, you were open to other material, and this song comes along called Betty Davis Eyes. Tell us about finding that and what it was, and then transforming it in the studio.
Well, it was first played for me from that same producer. And while the feel of the song felt kind of wrong for the lyric, just the title alone, I loved the lyric. It was like, that's too cool. I love that. Let's figure out a way to cut it. And a couple of months went by, we kept cutting on that album, and it kind of just went away. And every time I'd ask that producer about it, he would make some vague excuse that made no sense. So the next album that I did with Val Garay, Donna Weiss, who wrote the lyrics, reminded me that I'd liked the demo of Betty Davis Eyes. She said, is it okay if I bring that over to you again? I'm like, yes, I love that. And she did. Still loved the lyric. And I still love to record live with a band, vocal at the same time that the band is getting their best take. So we always would book a rehearsal room and go in and rehearse before we'd go and record. So we rehearsed Betty Davis Eyes for 3 days, trying it 10 zillion different ways, knowing all those ways were not right. And the end of the third day, Bill Como, over in the corner on the incredible analog synthesizer, the Prophet, which to this day, the heart and soul, you know, just the most wonderful sounding instrument. He came up with the signature lick, and we all went, heads turned, that's it. And we then took all the major chords and turned them minor and put this really dark feel that the record ended up having. And I think it went like I said, You know, there's a really cool record out right now, and I was thinking of a Gary Newman record called In Cars that had a synth lick that went did. So I said, what about In Cars? What if we incorporated a lick like that? Craig Cramp, my drummer, thought I meant the group, The Cars, ran in the back room, came out and said, I've got it. And you know Cramp's enthusiasm. It ended up being the trash drum. He thought I meant the Cars, and they had a trash drum. And so it was a really happy accident. And Goldie, my other keyboard player, did end up coming up with his own version of the Gary Newman lick. And we all knew this was so right for this lyric, and this is the only way that we could do this song. So the next day we went in the studio, and it was the second take, all live, and that was it. And what ended up being the record was actually a rough mix. We took a break over Christmas, and of course I had to take everything we'd recorded home. So we did quick, rough mixes, and we could never beat the rough. That was it. So, you know, and I believe in that stuff. I believe in the spontaneity of, you know, back then before automation, everybody had their hands on faders. And it was, every time you would do a mix, it was a performance. So every mix was completely different. And there was only one that had the magic. And it turned out that was it. And seat of your pants. I mean, really, it was great.
On the inventiveness of the musicians and people working together as a band. It's such a cool
Yes,
thing.
a total band. I mean, that record and every record. And still to this day, even to the last album I did, the most recent album.
Chasing Wild Trains.
Yeah, Chasing Wild Trains. Again, was about my band who, oh my gosh, we've been together 20 years now here. And also about my pals that I'm so in awe of, that I wrote the songs for Chasing Wild Trains with, and they would come in and play guitar, sing backgrounds, a total collaborative effort, labor of love. And to me, that's my favorite part about what I do, about music. It's not doing it by myself, it's about who I get to do it with. Sharing the whole process. So it's always been like that.
It was cool because when you wound up winning a Grammy for Record of the Year, right, on Betty
Record
Davis
of the
Eyes,
Year,
and
yeah.
it seems like that was a band victory too.
It was a band victory.
You and your buds.
We celebrate. I mean, that's my producer Val Garay. Yes.
Yeah. You guys didn't let the band in that shot, but.
No, but we partied afterwards hard. We had fun.
Hey, let's hear just a little bit of that song most of you are well familiar with, but there might be somebody who's not. And focus in on, immediately you have this signature synth lick.
Bill's lick.
Yeah. Listen for Bill's lick.
Her hair is hollow gold, her lips sweet surprise. Her hands are never cold. She's got Betty Davis eyes. She'll turn her music on you. You won't have to think twice. She's pure as New York snow. She got Betty Davis eyes. And she'll tease you, she'll unease you, all the better just to please you. She's precocious, and she knows just what it takes to make a pro blush. She got Greta Garbo, standoff size. She's got Betty Davis eyes.
I love
you
your
go.
little signals.
I love that photo of you with Betty Davis, who you came to know in the wake of all that, and she loved it and would come backstage and swig your wine, right, and things like that.
She was so remarkable. The first time I met her was to take this photo, and the really famous, wonderful George Harrell took that photo, which was a whole nother wonderful moment. And when I walked into her apartment, the first thing I saw was a crocheted pillow that said, "No guts, no glory," which, hello, yeah. that was so her. And she was the most amazing woman. And we did become, I mean, I never dreamed out of this record that we would end up having such a wonderful friendship. I mean, Betty Davis, yeah, it was crazy. I would go over to her apartment, say to take a little Christmas present or something, and she would end up chain smoking, walking up and down her hallway, telling me stories of how hard it was to fight for good roles. And the studio, fought her hard, and she got the reputation of being difficult to work with, and she was just fighting to do good art, good work. And I heard a lot of stories. She was remarkable.
Now, speaking of roles, I mean, you were on a roll with Betty Davis Eyes. I believe it was the second biggest single of the 1980s, and there were a few other popular artists in the 80s, Springsteen, Prince, Michael Jackson. Did you worry that you would be kind of typecast after the success of that song?
At that time, no, I never gave it a thought. I was so in the moment. And I'll say we were, because, it was constant touring with the band, my family, and we were so elated that we could go out and have so much fun playing shows. The other thing that it did was open up the rest of the world. And still to this day, I get to go play Europe every year because this record opened up the whole world. South America, I mean, it just was crazy. Yeah. So no, at that time, we just reveled in the wonderfulness of it all. It was just big fun.
So the world opens up to you, and then you go into the studio on another Grammy occasion and sing "We Are the World."
Yeah.
With a lot of buds. This was one of the most amazing conglomerations of talents and egos ever assembled in one room. What in the world happened there? Well,
no egos showed that night, I can say. When we first walked in, it was at A&M Studios, and Quincy Jones, who was producing it, put a note above the entrance, "Leave your ego at the door." And truly, everybody did. People were so thrilled to be part of this cause, of this occasion, and everybody was just amazing. And I remember walking out of there 7 a.m, the sun was up, and it had gone by like that. It was quite amazing.
Let's see, if some of you, if you haven't seen this video in a while, there are some, it's worth it just for the haircuts, But let's see a little bit of "We Are the World" with Kim. Cutting edge.
There comes a time when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one. There are people dying. Oh, when it's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest gift of all. We can't go on pretending day by someone somewhere will soon make a change. We all a part of God's great big family. And the truth, you know, love is all we need.
We are the world. We are the children. We are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we make a better day. Just you and me. Well, send them your heart so they know that someone cares, and their lives will
Be stronger and free, as God has shown us by turning stone to bread. And so we all must lend a helping hand. We are the world. We are the children.
We are the one to make a brighter day. So let's start giving.
Oh, there's a choice we're making. We're saving our lives. It's true, we make a better day, just you and me.
When you're down and out, and there seems no hope at all.
But if you just believe, there's nowhere we can fall.
Well, let's realize, oh, that a change can only come when we stand
Together as one. We are the children. We are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving.
Wow. It's been so long since I've seen that.
Really?
Thank you. Oh, yeah, really
See, if
long
I
time.
had been on there, I would every night at my house, I would invite everyone over and be like, check it out. You're going to, Huey Lewis is going to come in and then, there's me.
Of course you would do that. I know you. Yeah, you would. You know, I'm looking down at all the signatures, and that was so cool. At the end of the session, we all had our sheet music, and everybody took it around to everybody else and signed. We have every single signature on the sheet music, which is beyond incredible.
God, it's wild.
Yeah, it is wild.
What do you do after that? You just like go to a diner or something, or
Yeah, you go to Pink's and get a hot dog.
Crazy.
Chili dog.
and you also, and we mentioned earlier the make no mistake, he's mine. That you had a duet with Barbara Streisand that you wrote, and then she changed your color of your eyes and all that. So still writing for others is a big part of that. Your
Yes.
creativity going towards other folks, and then that winds up becoming another Kenny Rogers connection because he and Ronnie Millsap changed the gender to it and had their own country hit with
#1 country record. And they also won a Grammy for Best Duo for Make No Mistake. She's mine. You know, should I tell this story when I got the call from John Peters about writing it?
No, nobody wants to hear that story. No. Yes, please.
Well, out of the blue, I got a call from, at the time, Barbara's manager, I think, boyfriend or manager, John Peters. And he asked me if I would write a song that the two of us could sing together. And as I told you, I thought, that is so bizarre. I mean, we couldn't be more different. We sing so differently, our styles are different. And I'm so flattered, but that's never gonna happen. And truly, within an hour, I went to the piano, sat down, and the song that would end up working just wrote itself. And to the point where I didn't have a pencil or trusty yellow pad, and had to yell, somebody, please bring me the yellow pad and a pencil, because I knew that if I got up from the piano, it would go away, I would lose it. And then the next day, we went in, demoed it, just Bill playing the piano, me singing it, sent it over to Barbara, and again got a quick, okay, we'll do it. And Bill and I ended up producing her record. And
Bill Como.
Bill Como, yes. And I think, I'm not sure of the timing, you probably know. A couple years later, Kenny called and said, I'm doing a record with Ronnie Millsap. Do you have a song, or could you write one that two guys could sing? And I said, well, you're going to really have to use your imagination, but just change it to Make No Mistake, She's Mine. And it could work. And it did. And #1 country record. So,
right. That was your first #1 country hit, right? Or maybe.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, that was before the Heart Won't
That was
Run On.
before. Yeah, it was.
So now there's a Nashville connection, and you soon were coming here to record. In around '87, you decided, I'm gonna check this place out. And you reunite with Jimmy Bowen.
Yes, right.
And come here to make an album, and thus begins the Nashville
Connection.
phase of your life. And that album had you had John Prine songs on it, right? And, Lyle Lovett and Vince Gill singing harmonies.
Yes.
That's a pretty
Steve
good.
Warner.
That's not bad. And what were your thoughts on this town then? Nashville was kind of popping then with a lot of intelligent singer-songwriter types.
Well, Katie Lang, Lyle Lovett were right about to explode, and it was a wonderful time here. And the first thing that hit me was, it felt, for a songwriter, it felt like those Martoni early days in the 70s in Hollywood, that energy. And I, after recording that album, went home and I couldn't get that out of my brain. Like, I love that feeling because I'm a songwriter. And I didn't move here till '94, but still continued to come and write with other writers. My publisher, Pat Higdon, was here. So my two boys were at home. I did not like leaving all the time. And I also figured, well, it can't hurt. I'll only move there for 2-3 years at the most. And then I can go back to LA. And here I am.
It's been
21 years, 22. Anyway, still here. What I didn't take into consideration is that I would make so many dear, dear friends, and that I would work with, but not just write with, but we all love each other. It's such an incredible, again, tribe that I didn't count on that happening, and it did. It's wonderful.
Were you surprised that so many Nashville and specifically country artists were gravitating towards your work? When you had The Heart Won't Lie, that was a #1 hit for Vince Gill and Reba McEntire, so you were helping out your old harmony singer there.
Right, because he really needed my help.
Yeah.
Yes.
But did you think, that won't fit there?
Well, I'd gotten enough country covers by that time that I realized I just can keep writing like I write. I'm not writing a specific country song. And if a country singer sings it and the instrumentation is different, it can work. So that's what happened.
There you go. It's worked out pretty good. In 2004, you had been here for a while, and you recorded it's maybe my favorite of your albums, the most kind of
my favorite too,
self-actuated album, Chasing Wild Trains, which coincidentally is in the museum store available, and you might even
what
sign
a
those.
coincidence. Yes.
Just like that We Are the World signature thing.
Yes.
Over there. But tell me about recording that, where it seems like that was a bit of a change for you.
Well, it was really the way always wanted to record an album. And once I got here and started doing so many Writer in the Round shows, I would try out new songs with my pals. And if we'd written together, we'd figure out how to do that song live. I had, from almost day one moving here, Billy Panda, my guitar player, Tim Lauer, keyboards, and Greg Barnhill, incredible singer-songwriter, as the nucleus. And the first song we recorded was called One Beat at a Time. And after I finished that, I went, okay, that's the bar for this album. That's what I want it to sound like. And whoever I wrote the song with, my dear, dear pal, Matresa Berg, and I wrote, I think, my favorite song on that album, called If I Was an Angel. And she came in and sang harmony, and her husband, Jeff Hanna, the one and only, played the coolest slide guitar. So it was such a labor of love. I mean, truly. And the other side story was, right when I began that album, my mom lived out in California, and she had a massive, massive stroke, one that she's not coming back from. And I would make trips out to visit her, and then I'd come back here and go right into the studio. And it's amazing what depth of feeling that puts into music. I mean, I have always believed music is the greatest healer. And this album, to me, really proved it. I couldn't wait I didn't know where to put all that sadness. And you put it into your music. How wonderful. So that was the other ingredient in this album.
Right. And then on the cover, there's 4-year-old you in your Western garb and your wedding car.
My honeymoon car, yes.
That's right. So it kind of brings it back home in that way.
Yeah, it is. It's just full circle.
Yeah. So what do you do now? You just kind of hang out and look at your, yeah?
Yeah, I drive around in that little car. Yeah.
You know what she does? She sits at this piano with this beautiful view out the window.
It's pretty nice, yeah.
And a genuine MTV Music Award with the Spaceman sitting on the piano. It's right next to the Grammys, and the MTV Award looks just as cool, I think.
It's pretty cool.
The
It's very
Spaceman
cool.
with the flag and everything. Kim, thank you so much for doing this. And did y'all learn anything from this, about this multifaceted character?
Thank you so much. I mean,
Would it bum anybody out if Kim sang a song or two? And maybe
Billy Panda,
Billy Panda here.
come on up. Get up
Billy
here.
Panda, everybody.
Yeah. And while Billy's, he's not taking long. Thank you again so much. This is the nicest thing anybody's ever done for me, the most meaningful, and there's no word to thank you enough. Thank you.
This is great for us. We love this. Thank you.
And you guys, thank you for showing up. And I've got some really good pals here, and I'm really glad that you're here.
Will you all
Okay.
stand up and render?
This is a song that I mentioned earlier that I wrote with Matresa Berg, my dear, dear pal, and Gary Harrison. And there's so many different ways to write a song. And I had part of a song written, and I took it to Matresa's house and played it on the piano and sang. And she said, there's a song that Gary and I wrote, started, and we haven't finished. Let me go get it. And we just kind of married the two together and wrote a little more, and we ended up with one of my all-time favorite songs. I never do a show that I don't sing it, and it was on an album of Matresa's, and it was on my Chasin' Wild Trains album, If I Was an Angel.
They say I latched on to you like you were the last train leaving town. You just kept on moving, boy, left me here to live you down. And Mama said she'd send a wire and cried on the phone. Said you'll always be my angel girl, and won't you come back home? 'Cause if I was an angel, I would fly over Jordan, and I wouldn't need no greyhound to save my soul. And maybe that's a good thing. I'll be home before I know. 'Cause if I was an angel, I'd have a long way to go. Well, I got a job as a waitress in some godforsaken place. Guess there's no choosing where you land once you fall from grace. I'm not sure what keeps me here, the shame or my fool pride. And neither one can give me wings or offer me a ride. 'Cause if I was an angel, I would fly over Jordan, and I wouldn't need no greyhound to save my soul. And maybe that's a good thing. I'll be home before I know. If I was an angel, I'd have a long way to go. And whoa, tonight I'll be dreaming of the cracks in the sidewalk, the face through the window. It's back to a place I belong. Oh, if I was an angel, yeah, I'd fly over Jordan, and I wouldn't need no greyhound to save my soul. And maybe that's a good thing. I'll be home before I know. 'Cause if I was an angel, I'd have a long way to go. And maybe that's a good thing. I'll be home before I know. 'Cause if I was an angel, I'd have a long way to go. Matresa Berg. Pure water. Whoops. Almost had another. Okay, hit it. Are we doing the one I think we're doing? Oh, we're doing the one you think. So, you guys, there's just us up here. So, when we get to the trash drum part, I'm gonna need you to clap. I'll do this. Her hair is hollow gold. Her lips are sweet surprise. Her hands are never cold. She got Betty Davis eye. She'll turn her music on you. You won't have to think twice. She's pure as New York snow. She got Betty Davis eyes. And she'll tease you. She'll unease you. All the better just to please you. She's precocious, and she knows just what it takes to make a pro blush. She got sighs. She'll let you take her home. Yeah, appetite. She'll lay on your throne. She got Betty Davis eyes. She'll take a tumble on you, roll you like you were dice until you come up blue. She got Betty Davis eyes. She'll expose you when she snows you off your feet with a crumb she throws you. She's ferocious and she knows just what it takes to make a pro blush. All the boys think she's a spy. She's got Betty Davis eyes. And she'll tease you, she'll unease you, all the better just to please you. She's precocious and she knows just what it takes to make it pro blush. All the boys think she's a spy. She's got Betty Davis eyes. And she'll tease you, she'll unease you just to please ya. She got Betty Davis eyes. She'll expose you when she snows you, 'cause she knows ya. She got Betty Davis eyes.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Beyond thank you. Are you going to say something? Am I going to say something?
I think you just did.
Oh, okay. So we'll go water. What a treat to have this piano to play. This is a song off the Chasing Wild Trains album that I wrote with the wonderful Greg Barnhill. So, Billy, you're going to help me on this? I will. Okay, thank you. Oh, the sun's coming through. Little cracks in the shade. Take a long look at you, and I'm still amazed. You're the king of my heart. You're the spark in my eyes. I was straight out of luck. You saved my life. So hold me close, like there ain't no heaven. Let the light you shine cover and fill every empty place I had broken. Let your love linger until I'm still warmed by the thrill. There's a dew on
baby, I will. In this tattered old world where there ain't nothing new, baby, I turned around, found an angel like you. So hold me close like there ain't no heaven. Let the light you shine cover and fill every empty place I have been broken. Let your love linger until I'm still warm by the thrill. Let your love linger until I'm still warm by the thrill. Let your love linger until I'm still warm by the thrill. Yeah, baby, the thrill. Still warm by the thrill. Yeah, the thrill.
Kim Carnes.
Billy Panda. Peter Cooper.